The palace thought the Diana story would stay buried in silence forever, but now the walls of Althorp are shaking after Charles Spencer allegedly exploded behind closed doors and humiliated Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in a way nobody inside the royal world expected. This was not another tabloid whisper. This was Diana's own brother stepping directly into the war and sending a chilling message that many believe changes everything for the Sussex brand forever. Because, according to insiders, the moment Spencer reportedly called the entire Netflix-style Diana comparison a joke, the atmosphere around Harry and Meghan completely shifted. Suddenly, people started asking the one dangerous question the couple never wanted the public to ask. What if Diana's own family no longer supports the narrative Harry and Meghan built their empire around? The silence surrounding Althorp House has always carried mystery, but now that silence feels almost hostile, heavy, calculated. Like the Spencer family has finally reached a breaking point after years of watching Diana's memory become part of a modern celebrity machine. And according to royal insiders, Charles Spencer was not interested in being polite anymore. He reportedly reviewed proposals connected to a major 2027 Diana project and immediately became disturbed by what he saw. Not because it was about Diana, but because Meghan Markle was allegedly positioned at the emotional center of the story itself. That was the moment everything changed. The project was no longer seen as a respectful tribute. It was allegedly viewed as an attempt to repackage Diana's suffering into a Hollywood product designed to rescue a struggling media empire. For years, Harry and Meghan survived criticism by leaning on one powerful emotional weapon, Diana. Every interview, every documentary, every emotional accusation against the palace always circled back to her memory. And at first, the world sympathized. The comparisons worked. Meghan wore Diana-inspired jewelry. Meghan echoed Diana's struggles with the press. Meghan positioned herself as the modern outsider trapped inside a cold institution. But according to critics watching this pattern grow stronger year after year, the tribute slowly started turning into something darker, something far more strategic. Royal watchers even coined a phrase for it, Diana cosplay. And once that phrase entered public discussion, people began re-examining everything. The famous aquamarine ring, the Cartier watch, the butterfly earrings, the carefully emotional interviews, the repeated references to isolation, mental health, and palace cruelty. Suddenly, all those moments no longer looked random to critics. They looked coordinated. And according to insiders close to the Spencer family, Charles Spencer had been quietly watching this transformation unfold for years from behind the gates of Althorp, watching his sister's pain become branding material, watching Diana's tragedy slowly evolve into commercial storytelling for streaming audiences. What makes this situation even more explosive is that Spencer is not some distant relative throwing opinions from the sidelines. He is the guardian of Diana's private world. He controls access to the estate. He protects the archives. He decides who gets close to the real story behind the Princess of Wales. And according to reports, Netflix desperately wanted those archives. Not just interviews, not just permission. They allegedly wanted Diana's private letters, unseen footage, handwritten notes, and intimate family material that could transform the project into a global sensation. That was the real jackpot. Because without Althorp, without Spencer cooperation, the entire documentary loses authenticity overnight. That is why Spencer's reported reaction hit like a nuclear blast inside both Hollywood and royal circles. 4 devastating words. Is this a joke? In one sentence, he allegedly destroyed the emotional foundation of the entire project. Suddenly, Harry and Meghan no longer looked like the rightful storytellers of Diana's legacy. They looked locked out, rejected by the very bloodline connected to Diana herself. And insiders claim the humiliation behind palace walls was even worse than the headlines revealed because Spencer's refusal was not quiet. It was cold, direct, final. The most painful part may actually be what this means for Prince Harry personally, because this is no longer just Windsor versus Sussex. This is Spencer versus Sussex too. Diana's own family versus Harry's California narrative. And sources believe Harry now finds himself emotionally trapped between loyalty to Meghan and loyalty to his mother's legacy. The Spencers once represented safety for Harry, humanity, escape from palace rigidity. But now, even they reportedly appear disturbed by how heavily Diana's memory has been commercialized. Even more shocking are growing whispers that Prince William and Charles Spencer may now be operating in silent alignment behind the scenes. Not publicly, not officially, but strategically, because William has reportedly become deeply frustrated over what he sees as the commercialization of Diana's image for profit-driven content. And according to royal analysts, Spencer's public rejection achieves something brilliant for the future king. It blocks the Sussex narrative without Buckingham Palace ever needing to attack Harry and Meghan directly. Spencer becomes the shield, the blood family becomes the firewall, and suddenly Harry cannot fight back without appearing to fight Diana's own relatives. Meanwhile, the damage spreading through Hollywood may already be severe. Executives reportedly expected the Diana Anniversary project to become the Sussex's biggest success yet, a guaranteed global hit. But without Spencer cooperation, insiders fear the project risks looking like just another sensationalized retelling instead of the definitive account they promised investors. And in Hollywood, perception becomes reality frighteningly fast. Once the words exploitation and Diana start appearing in the same sentence, brands get nervous. Investors hesitate. Invitations disappear quietly behind closed doors. The deeper this story goes, the more dangerous it becomes for Prince Harry, because insiders now believe Charles Spencer's rejection was never only about a Netflix documentary. It was about control. Control over Diana's memory. Control over who profits from her suffering. And most importantly, control over who gets to emotionally inherit her image in front of the world. Because according to royal analysts, Charles Spencer has spent years watching something unfold that deeply disturbed him. The transformation of Diana from a tragic historical figure into a modern celebrity blueprint being reused again and again for commercial survival. And suddenly, people inside palace circles started connecting disturbing patterns. Every time Harry and Meghan's popularity dropped, Diana's memories seemed to reappear at the center of the narrative. Every controversy somehow circled back to emotional comparisons with Diana. Every interview revived the same themes: silence, victimhood, isolation, media cruelty, institutional betrayal. At first, the public saw those references as emotional honesty, but now critics claim the strategy became too repetitive to ignore, too polished, too perfectly timed. And according to reports, Charles Spencer allegedly reached a point where he no longer believed these comparisons honored his sister at all. He reportedly believed they were replacing the real Diana with a manufactured modern version designed for streaming audiences and celebrity branding. What makes this even more explosive is the psychological history behind Spencer's anger, because people close to the Diana story know one haunting truth that never fully disappeared after 1995. Charles Spencer has reportedly carried enormous guilt for decades over the Panorama interview disaster. He was the family member who introduced Diana to the journalist connected to that infamous interview, long before the manipulation tactics and fake documents became public knowledge. He watched firsthand as Diana's vulnerability was turned into global television spectacle. He watched her pain become ratings. And insiders now believe he sees terrifying similarities between that media exploitation and the current Sussex strategy. That is why this rejection reportedly became so emotional behind the scenes. To Spencer, this was not just another business proposal crossing his desk. This was history repeating itself. Another media machine trying to monetize Diana's suffering while disguising it as empowerment. Another emotional narrative carefully edited for mass consumption. And according to royal insiders, Spencer finally decided he would rather be accused of cruelty than stand back silently while Diana's legacy became permanent streaming content. Meanwhile, Harry now appears more isolated than ever inside this growing storm, because every direction he turns now leads to emotional conflict. If he sides publicly with Meghan, he risks appearing disconnected from Diana's own blood relatives. But if he quietly understands Spencer's concerns, then he must confront the terrifying possibility that the entire California chapter of his life may have drifted far away from what Diana herself would have wanted. That emotional contradiction is becoming impossible to hide, especially now that reports suggest William and Spencer are standing more united than ever behind the scenes. And that alliance may be the real earthquake nobody saw coming, because for years the public focused entirely on the feud between William and Harry, while missing something much more important quietly forming in the background: the strengthening relationship between William and Diana's Spencer family. Analysts believe this connection gives William enormous emotional authority over Diana's legacy without Buckingham Palace ever needing to publicly attack Harry and Meghan. It is a silent strategy. Elegant, ruthless, effective. Spencer becomes the public defender of Diana, while William remains the calm future king protected from direct confrontation. And together, they create a wall Harry cannot emotionally break through without damaging himself. In Hollywood, however, the panic may already be spreading faster than the royal family expected. Executives understand something brutal about modern celebrity culture. Once authenticity collapses, rebuilding trust becomes nearly impossible. And according to insiders, the Spencer rejection created exactly that problem for the Sussex brand, because the couple's greatest selling point was never lifestyle products or podcasts. It was emotional proximity to the royal story, more specifically, proximity to Diana. That connection made them unique in America. It made them marketable. It made them powerful. But if Diana's own brother publicly rejects their narrative, the illusion begins to crack in front of investors, brands, streaming executives, and audiences simultaneously. Now, even Montecito insiders are reportedly worried about what comes next, because the Sussex lifestyle depends on giant media contracts continuing forever. Security costs, staff, luxury living, public image management, everything depends on staying culturally relevant. But critics claim relevance built on emotional royal trauma has an expiration date, and Spencer's veto may have accelerated that countdown dramatically. Suddenly, the couple's future no longer looks untouchable. It looks uncertain, fragile, dependent on a royal identity that appears to be slipping away piece by piece. As the gates of Althorp remain firmly closed, one message now echoes through both palace corridors and Hollywood boardrooms alike: Diana's legacy is no longer available for unlimited public consumption. Charles Spencer has drawn a line in the sand, and whether people see him as protective or ruthless, one reality can no longer be ignored. The battle over Diana's memory has officially become a war between bloodline and branding, and tonight, Harry and Meghan may finally be realizing something deeply unsettling. Some royal doors do not close loudly. They close quietly, permanently, and with the cold force of family history behind them.